Hello everybody and welcome to this foil fireside chat. I'm delighted to have with me this morning Rebecca Barton. She is a legal executive at Forbes Solicitors and she is the president of Tomorrow's Foil, which is a really important part of our offering for lawyers who are at the start of their career. And I've invited Rebecca to come along this morning just to have a little chat about how she got into insurance law and what's attractive about it as a career, to the point that hopefully once you've watched this video, you might want to look further into insurance law as an option for your career, your forthcoming career in law. We are always available for any questions you want to ask that we haven't answered. Our contact details will appear at the end of the video clip, and we hope you find it useful. So I suppose the first thing I wanted to just sort of ask you, Rebecca, really was what made you choose insurance law as an area of practice specialised in? Because I mean, I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily make that their first choice, but what was it that drew you to this area of practice?
Actually, saying that, it wasn't my first choice.
Fair enough.
Ironically, it actually I stumbled very much into it. I started in claimant personal injury, doing work for some law, not well named law firms. Certainly not across the country anyway. They're certainly well known in the Northwest, but they're not known down south or anything. And with the reforms that were coming in, following all the guidelines that were happening towards claimant personal injury work, because they were trying to put the whiplash injury claims up to 5,000 as a starting point and things like that. So I just took the chance and saw this job at Forbes and it just said insurance. And I thought, well, I'm already working in that sort of area. Let's give it a go. Let's see what it happens. Then when I got the interview, I jumped on Google and looked up the two people that were interviewing me and found out that it was actually in social care. So I actually work in defendant social care, which is not an area that I ever wanted to do at all. It was very much, but now I'm in it and it's just, I can't imagine doing anything else. It's really? Just so interesting that there's never 2 days that are ever the same.
Right.
We've just got a mixture of different areas of law that we do and just different claims and everything else that we just deal with on a daily basis. And we're obviously not just one team. We're a big team of insurance that is split over several teams. So we do a lot of fraud and different areas. So it's not just, for me, it's not just one area that we can get into. So like I said, I didn't find insurance law found me. That's the best way to answer it.
Nicely put. But what's I mean, you said you find it really fascinating, but in terms of rewarding work, what do you find is the most rewarding aspect of what you do?
Well, I do just for my team, I do costs as well as the nitty-gritty part of the work as well. So I do costs. For me, the negotiating of costs and things like that is quite interesting for me, and especially when you get the best outcome for your client as well. That for me is a great reward. And also as well, I always remember when I left claimant PI, someone said to me, when you go into defendant insurance, you'll lose your heart. And I turned around and said, you know what? I've actually gained more of a heart for these people working in this side of it than I ever did doing claimant PI. So for me, it is the most rewarding part is the fact that you can give those people something back, especially when they've suffered as a result of something that's happened.
Yes.
So, and it is great because obviously sometimes there are those people that bring claims that don't really need to bring claims, but there are those ones that are genuine and you think we've probably done that person really good by doing what we do. So, and we've probably helped them in some way just by giving them something back.
Yeah. No, I can see that. That's a really interesting take on it because I suppose intuitively most people would think that being on the claimant side is the most personally satisfying, but to hear you say that actually being part of that compensation process, delivering the right compensation to the right people is even more rewarding. That's a really interesting take on it. It hadn't really occurred to me to look at things like that. I mean, the insurance industry is a massive industry for the UK, as you know. I think there's something like 310,000 people employed in the insurance industry, and there's vast amounts of money in there. And of course, it's a very, very stable industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of reflected in the stability of a career in insurance law, doing that. But I mean, if you sort of rewound a few years, is there a sort of single piece of advice or multiple pieces of advice, if you have them, that you would want to give to law students if they're when they're thinking about, well, which area am I going to specialise in? Is there a particular piece of advice that you might want to offer them when they're thinking going down that road and considering all their options?
Don't just consider the big ones. Like, obviously,
Okay.
family law, crime are the biggest ones. Corporate are some of the biggest ones. Insurance law doesn't really get pushed out there, which is something I remember as a law student, because obviously I did my LLB, and as a law student, right back in my LLB, even my LPC stage, there wasn't much about insurance law, and it only ever forms from tort law, and tort law is not the most interesting of subjects, especially when you're a student. But for me, it's when you're in it and you're doing it on a daily basis, it is fascinating, because it's so complex, and like you say, there's not just one area of law that you can go into with insurance. We're subjected to, obviously we're subjected to the genuine child sexual exploitation, but then on top of that as well, we've got adult care claims, deprivation of liberty matters, we deal with inquests, education matters, football claims, and they're not obviously extending out into our team. There's fraud, which we've done, obviously at Tomorrow's Foil we've done quite a few mock trials on, which is, again, I've never done a mock trial, I've never done a fraud case, but it's really, when I've sat and watched it, it's really interesting, because it's just watching people, and it just doesn't stem there. Like, we do construction, we do employers, we do all sorts of things. So you're not just dealing with one area, and never one day is the same. So it is really interesting. So I would say to the law student, seriously consider it and seriously think about what you want to do, because crime, family are all fun and games, but it's, to me, this is more interesting, and it keeps your mind active.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I did sort of very, very basic law as part of my Chartered Insurance Institute qualification. And it's always struck me that with insurance law, as well as those different types of insurance that you talked about, and therefore the different types of claims that emerge from those types of policies, as an insurance lawyer, you need to understand contract, you need to understand tort, you need to understand agency, because brokers are a huge part of the industry. And you need to understand regulation, because it's a highly regulated industry. So there are not only many different types of insurance, and therefore many different types of claims, but there are many different areas of technical law, for want of a better phrase, that you need to understand, and you can actually use those in your day-to-day practice. So
we also do human rights law as well, which not many people would think that insurance law would cover even human rights things, but we deal with a lot of human rights things in our department. So it is that it's not
very,
just
very,
subjected
very, very
to
broad.
area.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I think the insurance industry does have this rather sort of narrow, dull image, but anybody watching this video, don't just take our word for it. Talk to anybody that's in insurance law, and I suspect they will tell you the same thing. It is surprisingly interesting, and I think I always think about the insurance industry is it underpins so much of what we do in our day-to-day life. If there was no risk transfer industry, there wouldn't be universities, because the financial risks of running a university would be too great for an uninsured organisation to bear. So no universities, be no cars on the road, be no planes in the air, no ships on the sea, because the risks of doing those things are too great. Finance wouldn't be obtainable for those businesses and those sectors, because the risks would be too great. So you have to have this way of transferring the risk of things away from you as an entity to another entity, and that's what the insurance industry does in very, very simple terms. And it's a fascinating industry for those reasons, if nothing else. So I'm just wondering, obviously you're still at the beginning of your career, but you're a few years in now. What have you seen changing in your time so far?
So I'll just take my 6 years at Forbes, for example. When I started at Forbes, there was we had a lot of what's known as failure to remove claims. So this was obviously social workers and things like that were right at the start, and they were failing to remove the child or a person before, while they were being abused in a home. Since then, there's a few cases that have gone through the Court of Appeal and even as high as the Supreme Court now, to say that this now no longer can happen. There's got to be a few, I'm not obviously going to go into all the law and everything around it, but there's got to be a few things that have got to be put in place in order for those claims to come. So now we're seeing a complete change in claims that are coming through the door. So it's more like human rights, so bringing a human rights claim as opposed to bringing a failure to remove claim, because the Supreme Court have just said that they can't bring those claims anymore. That a failure to remove has got to be, so something has to have been promised above and beyond that social worker's normal right of duty in order to bring a failure to remove claim, and that's the case now. Whereas when I started 6 years, even 6 years ago, it's a massive change for us, and it's something that we've had to adapt to as a department. So that's probably one of the biggest changes that I've seen. Obviously, going back to even before that, there was the biggest whiplash reform claims, and the fact that the claims have to start at £5,000 now. So the small claims for whiplash injury claims are now £5,000, which is the reason that I changed into insurance and became defendant insurance rather than claimant PI. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen change is definitely that part of our area of law, certainly.
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. That's been really, really sort of fascinating, quick catch up on everything that that you've been doing and how you got into the area of insurance law, and hopefully my two pennyworth has been helpful as well in terms of the insurance industry and its importance to the UK economy in particular, but also to business and commerce generally. But if you had one thing that you wish that you had known when you were an undergraduate, what would that one thing be?
I'd like to have seen more information about insurance law.
Okay.
Because definitely, I know what we do at Tomorrow's Foil is amazing, because we try and push it out there and get it to the students and try and get involved with the universities and things like that. But I was speaking to actually somebody who's just finished her undergraduate degree, and she said there's nothing out there about insurance law. Given that, like she said, obviously you've got all your big crime, your family departments and everything else, and that was always what was pushed on me as an undergraduate. Look at these departments, they're amazing. Corporate, look at this is amazing. But for me, now I've got everything that I like, I wish I'd known more about it even back then. Like, I wish there'd been more options to find more information about it, definitely.
Okay, well that's great. Well, hopefully this short video will be useful to people, to look at insurance law as a really positive option to get into. So, listen, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. I hope everybody who's watching this has found this useful. Our contact details will appear at the end of this video. There'll also be some QR codes that you can use to follow Foil, which obviously includes Tomorrow's Foil, on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Lots of stuff going out, and if you would like to know more information, please do contact us. We both wish you all the very best in your future career, whatever you choose to do, but please do consider insurance law, because as you've heard, it's a great choice. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.